You know those stories that just kind of burrow into your brain and refuse to let go?
Oh, absolutely.
For me, the Dyatlov Pass incident is definitely one of them. I mean, picture this. February 1959, deep in the desolate Ural Mountains,
Hmm.
9 experienced ski hikers, students mostly, from the Ural Polytechnical Institute. They set out on this really tough trek and vanished.
And then they're found, but the circumstances are just, well, completely bewildering.
Yeah.
Tragic, obviously, but so strange.
Exactly. And what gets me right from the start is how skilled they were. This wasn't like a casual weekend trip.
No, not at all. They were going for their grade 3rd certification. That was the highest you could get back then, wasn't it?
Yeah, the absolute top tier. Required a 300-kilometer traverse. Their leader, Igor Dyatlov, he knew what he was doing.
And the destination was Mount Atorton, a Category 3rd trek, which in February, that's brutal.
Absolutely brutal. And the place itself, Kholat Shakal, that's the mountain where they made their last camp.
The local Mansi people called it Dead Mountain.
Yeah. Gives you chills, doesn't it? And now, the pass where it all happened, it's named Dyatlov Pass, a permanent reminder.
It really is. And we
Yeah.
should probably lay out the timeline just briefly.
Good idea. So they left the city, Sverdlovsk, it's Yekaterinburg now, on January 23rd.
Right. Started the actual trek, the skiing part, on the 27th.
And then just one day later, the 28th, one member, Yuri Yudin, he gets sick.
Has to turn back. Just fate, really. An illness saved his life.
It's unbelievable when you think about it. So the remaining 9 push on. Their last known camp, that's set up February 1st, maybe the 2nd.
On that eastern slope of Kholat Shakal, Dead Mountain.
Mm-hmm. And then another strange bit, the delay in anyone realizing they were missing.
Yeah, Dyatlov was supposed to send a telegram when they got back to a village called Vizai, expected around February 12th.
But no telegram comes.
And nobody raises the alarm immediately. It took until about the 20th, didn't it? When relatives really started pushing.
Exactly. Nearly a week after they were due back. Imagine those lost days, the weather.
Agonizing. So finally, the search starts. And what they find? Well, it just opens up a whole new level of questions. February 26th.
They find the tent.
Right. And it's badly damaged, torn, ripped open.
But crucially, it was cut open from the inside.
From the inside. That detail is just, it immediately suggests panic, right? A desperate need to get out now.
Totally. But then what doesn't make sense is everything else was still in the tent.
All their belongings, their supplies, their boots, their skis.
Their shoes. Who runs out into the Siberian winter below 0 temperatures without shoes? It breaks your brain trying to figure that out.
It really does. Experienced hikers wouldn't do that unless something truly terrifying was happening.
So they follow the footprints, 9 sets.
Leading away from the tent, downhill, towards the woods nearby.
And some of these prints, I mean, it confirms the panic. People wearing only socks.
Or just one shoe. Or completely barefoot.
Barefoot in the snow. It's just unimaginable, fleeing into the darkness like that.
And about, what, 1.5 kilometers away?
Yeah.
Down by the tree line.
Yeah, under this big Siberian pine tree. That's where they found the first 2 bodies.
Krivonyshenko and Doroshenko.
Right. And they were near the remains of a small fire. But they were dressed in, well, hardly anything.
Just their underwear, basically. Shoeless.
In that cold. And another really weird detail about that pine tree.
The branches were broken, right? Quite high up.
Yeah, like up to 5 meters. It suggests someone climbed it. But why?
Maybe you're trying to see something. The tent.
Oh.
Or something else. Who knows? Climbing a tree in that state, though.
It's a disturbing image. So then they found 3 more bodies scattered between that tree and the tent.
Dyatlov himself, Karmagorova, and Slobodin.
Their positions, the way they were found, it sort of suggested they were trying to get back.
Crawling back towards the tent, yeah. Like the initial panic wore off, and they realized they needed shelter.
But even then, something went off. Slobodin, he had a fractured skull. A small crack, but still.
Not something you'd expect from just freezing, is it? Hints of something more violent, even early on.
Exactly. But the real shock, the thing that completely changed the investigation, came much later. May 4th.
When the snow melted enough.
They found the last 4 hikers, under 4 meters of snow, in a ravine deeper in the woods.
About 75 meters from that pine tree. Dubinina, Solitaryov, Thibaut Brignol, and Kolovatov.
And their condition. It was different. For one thing, they were dressed better.
Yeah, that's a key point. It looks like they had managed to take some clothes off the ones who died first.
Right, like Dubinina was found wearing Krivonashenko's trousers, which were burned from that first fire.
So it suggests they weren't completely irrational. There was some thought, some attempt to survive, to gather more layers against the cold.
It shows some level of, logical action amidst whatever chaos happened, but then the injuries on these four.
This is where it gets really, really strange. The first five, okay, mostly hypothermia, apart from Slobodin's skull.
But these last four,
Yeah.
it was brutal.
Thibaut Vignola had massive skull damage, just catastrophic.
And Dubinina and Zolotaryov, severe chest trauma, crushed ribs.
The reports described the force needed as being similar to a car crash. Huge internal damage.
And this is the truly bizarre part, with no significant external wounds, no major bruising on the skin that you'd expect with that kind of impact.
How does that happen? What exerts that kind of crushing force without leaving marks on the outside? It's deeply puzzling.
And one of them, Zolotaryov, I think, also had a crack in his skull. Similar to Slobodin, it's like this pattern.
Yeah, minor skull fractures alongside these massive internal injuries. It doesn't fit any simple explanation.
And there's more. The soft tissue damage. Found on the bodies in the ravine, which was apparently a makeshift den with running water underneath the snow.
Right. Dubinina and Zolotaryov were missing their eyes.
And Dubinina was also missing her tongue, parts of her lips, facial tissue.
Kolvatov was missing his eyebrows. Now, the forensic expert at the time
Said it was likely post-mortem, putrefaction from being in running water for months.
which is plausible, scientifically.
Right.
But it just adds to the whole grim, unsettling picture, doesn't it?
Absolutely. And then you have these other odd details thrown in, like the skin color.
Oh, yes. The reports of a deep brown tan on the bodies. Someone recalled that from the funerals.
Yuri Kuntsevich, yeah. Strange. And maybe the most worrying detail for many, radiation.
Traces of radioactivity found on some items of clothing. Not hugely high levels, apparently, but enough to raise eyebrows.
Definitely enough to fuel speculation, especially combined with everything else.
So, given all this,
Mm-hmm.
this collection of just incredibly weird, contradictory findings, it's no wonder theories have run wild for decades.
Oh, for sure. The initial thought was maybe an attack by the local Mansi people.
But that was ruled out pretty quick, right? No evidence.
None at all. Only the hikers' footprints were found. No signs of a struggle with outsiders.
So the official investigation in 1959, what did they conclude again?
Famously vague. They put it down to a compelling natural force that the hikers couldn't overcome.
Which means basically nothing specific.
Pretty much.
Right.
And then the case was closed. Classified, which, in the Soviet Union.
Standard procedure for anything slightly unusual or unexplained, perhaps, but it certainly didn't help quell the rumors.
Not at all. It just added fuel to the fire. So, flash forward, more recently, Russia reopened the investigation.
And in 2020, they came out with an official conclusion. An avalanche.
Right. A slab avalanche, specifically. The idea being it hit the tent, maybe didn't bury it completely, but enough to cause panic.
Forcing them to cut their way out and flee downhill without proper gear. Then hypothermia sets in.
And there was that Swiss study in 2021 that sort of backed this up, technically.
Yeah, using modeling, they show that even on a relatively gentle slope like that one, a specific type of slab avalanche could potentially cause those kinds of chest and skull injuries if the hikers were pushed against skis or compacted snow.
Okay, so that's the official line now. But lots of people still aren't convinced, are they?
Not by a long shot.
Oh.
There are many arguments against the avalanche theory. For one, the physical evidence at the scene.
Like no obvious signs of a major avalanche, no big debris field, the kind of disturbed snow patterns you'd expect.
Exactly. And search teams, other expeditions later, they didn't report seeing clear avalanche signs. Plus, apparently, over 100 expeditions have been through that area since, and no similar incidents.
And the campsite location itself, you mentioned they were experienced. Dyatlov, Zolotaryov. Would they really pitch a tent in a spot obviously prone to avalanches?
It seems unlikely, though conditions can be deceptive.
Yeah.
And the footprints, they didn't necessarily look like pure blind panic from an avalanche bearing down. Some analysis suggests a more orderly withdrawal initially.
Although the investigators who reviewed it between 2015 and 2019, they did highlight something the 59 team might have missed.
The weather, right, just how bad it was.
Yeah, potentially hurricane-force winds, blizzards, extreme cold. Their revised theory suggested maybe not a sudden, huge avalanche, but perhaps a smaller snowslide or wind-blown snow building up and gradually pressing on the tent.
Which might explain a less frantic escape, maybe. Still doesn't fully explain everything, though.
No, definitely not. Which leads us to other natural theories, like katabatic winds.
That came out of a Swedish-Russian expedition in 2019. Katabatic winds are these sudden, really intense downslope gusts of cold air.
So the idea is this incredibly violent wind hits them, forces them to retreat quickly to the trees for shelter.
But then maybe the snow shelter they tried to build in the ravine collapsed, or the wind itself caused injuries. It's another possibility.
And then there's the infrasound idea. Donnie Ecker's book, Dead Mountain, really pushed this one.
Right. The theory is that the wind blowing over Shackle's specific shape could create infrasound, very low-frequency sound waves we can't hear.
But that can supposedly cause feelings of intense panic, dread, disorientation, even physical symptoms.
So perhaps this drove them mad, essentially, made them flee the tent irrationally.
And then maybe stumble into the ravine in the dark, causing the traumatic injuries. It's an intriguing theory. Hard to prove, though.
Very hard to prove. And then, of course, you get into the less natural theories, the military ones.
Secret Soviet weapons tests, that's always a big one.
Speculation about parachute mines being tested nearby. They explode midair, creating a concussive force. Could that explain internal injuries with little external sign?
Maybe. And it might also explain those orange spheres people reported seeing in the sky. Flares. Or something else.
Could be. There were definitely military exercises happening in the wider region. Then there's the radiation angle.
Leading to theories about radiological weapons testing. Dirty bombs, maybe?
Again, pure speculation. The radiation levels weren't that high, and it wasn't on all the bodies or clothes consistently. But the secrecy around the files.
Well, standard Soviet practice, as you said.
Oh.
But it does make people suspicious, doesn't it? Especially when things don't add up.
Absolutely. We should also briefly mention paradoxical undressing.
Yeah, the hypothermia thing, where people feel hot right before they freeze to death and start taking clothes off.
It's a documented phenomenon, and 6 of the 9 did officially die from hypothermia. But
the fact that the last 4 found had more clothes on, taken from the others, that suggests they weren't all just irrationally stripping down.
Exactly. It complicates the simple hypothermia explanation for their behavior.
And we can't just ignore those eyewitness reports of the lights in the sky.
The strange orange spheres. Reported by another hiking group miles away and people in towns nearby around the same time.
And the lead investigator from 59, Lev Ivanov, he later admitted they couldn't explain it.
And said he was ordered by high-up officials to basically drop that angle, dismiss the flying spheres reports. That's pretty telling, isn't it?
It really makes you wonder what was going on. Plus, there are other lingering oddities, discrepancies in reports about exactly where the snow den was found.
And claims from one of the investigators involved later on, Evgeny Okashev, I believe, that the case was shut down way too early by the authorities.
Yeah, and that the regional prosecutor showing up at the autopsies was highly unusual. Raises questions about oversight or maybe a cover-up.
It all adds layers and layers to the mystery. But it's also important to note what's generally been ruled out.
Right. Like we said, the Mansi attack, no evidence.
Animal attacks. Doesn't fit the injuries or the scene.
Just blaming it on high winds alone doesn't explain the tent being cut from inside or the specific injuries.
An argument within the group that turned violent. Again, no real evidence for that. And the hikers were known to be a cohesive team.
Or that someone mistook a photo flash bomb for something sinister seems unlikely to cause this level of catastrophe.
So you strip away the less likely explanations, and you're still left with this core enigma.
9 experienced people, dead in bizarre ways, injuries that don't quite fit any single theory perfectly, the flight from the tent.
The weird details like radiation, the lights, the missing tongue. It's just a perfect storm of unexplained phenomena.
It really is, which is why I think it continues to fascinate people so much after all these decades. The combination of the known facts, the remote, harsh setting, and the complete lack of a satisfying answer.
It's a true puzzle. So wrapping this up, we're left staring at the same questions they were asking in 1959, really.
Yeah. Was it just a terrible, unlucky series of natural events? A rare weather thing like a katabatic wind or a weird avalanche, maybe combined with some bad decisions under extreme pressure?
Or was it something human? A military test gone wrong, covered up? Or something else entirely, something we haven't even considered?
The Dyatlov Pass, it really does hold on to its secrets, doesn't it?
It certainly does. And for you listening, what's your gut feeling on this? What theory makes the most sense? Or maybe what crucial piece are we all still missing?
Does it make you think about the sheer power of nature? Or the limits of human endurance? Or maybe the possibility that sometimes The truth is stranger than we can imagine.
It's definitely a story that sticks with you.
Yeah.
A chilling reminder that even in our modern world, some mysteries might just remain unsolved.
Absolutely. And if this deep dive has sparked your curiosity, there's so much more information out there. Books, articles, documentaries, forums online. People are still actively discussing and researching this.
Definitely worth exploring further if you're intrigued. Look at the photos. Read the original reports if you can find translations. Form your own conclusions.
Because ultimately, the Dyatlov Pass incident remains one of the most compelling and truly perplexing unsolved mysteries of the 20th century.